Let's jump right in, shall we? So we're going to start with our piece D exterior and one 14-inch zipper. Make sure you find the center of your zippers. I went ahead and added my zipper pulls off camera. I always melt the ends of my zippers so they don't unravel. Zip your zipper so that it's closed, and then you're going to want to make sure that the zipper pull is on the left while it's closed. Then you're going to place it right side down on piece D and match the centers and clip. Baste at 1/4 inch. Now add your first piece of lining piece D, matching the centers. Sew 3/8 inch. Flip this so that the wrong sides are together. It's really important in all stages of this to go ahead and finger press the waterproof canvas down. Top stitch. So now you're going to add piece C. You're going to put it right side down on top of the front. This is going to be shown a little different than what it is in the pattern. So you find that middle. Make sure you put a clip on your end so your zipper pull doesn't come off. And you're going to go ahead and unzip this. Don't mind my fussy fingers. You're going to see that a lot in here, my fussy fingers. By the way, I do sell these clips on my website. And then baste this on at 1/4 inch. Zip it closed. And now you're going to add your second lining piece D, again matching your centers. Sew at 3/8 inch. What you don't see in this is me switching out my threads and my zipper feet. So you're going to want to make sure your seam allowance is pointing up and then go ahead and top stitch. Your second 14-inch zipper, right side down, matching the centers. Clip, baste it on at 1/4 inch. Now you're going to add piece F, right sides together, sandwiching the zipper and matching your centers. Sew at 3/8 inch. Now you're going to flip it out, putting wrong sides together. Again, finger pressing, very important. Top stitch. Next, we're going to add exterior piece B, right sides together, matching the centers. And again, this is shown a little differently than what's in the pattern. We're going to unzip. Flipping it over is helpful. You've got your center marked on your zipper, and you can just go ahead and clip the zipper to the rest of the piece B. Baste on at 1/4 inch. All sewing and clipping is speeded up in this video for time consideration. Okay, and go ahead and close your zipper. Putting a clip at the end of the zipper helps the zipper pull from accidentally coming off. Lining piece B. We're going to flip that right side down, and again matching our centers. I didn't speed up the video here so that you could really see the process of clipping this piece on. Sew at 3/8 of an inch. Of course, my stitching went wonky while I'm recording. I do recommend that you actually clip the B pieces together, like I haven't done here, before you top stitch. Just helps keep everything straight. Okay, next we're going to add the template. So you want to line up the tops and the bottoms, and then you also want to line up the seam allowances on either side where it shows for the zipper. If it's not straight, I do recommend trying to get your zippers the same amount of distance from the marks to make it look straight across the top when you finally cut it. Make sure you put your zippers inside before you cut. Switching out scissors here. Take your clips off before you throw your stuff away. And just continuing to cut around. If you would like to install your name badge, this is the part where you'll go ahead and do that. Use the measurements on the screen. Install as you normally would. Baste around the edges of your front panel. So here we're going to add piece E. You want to make sure that you have the right one by laying it down next to it and then flipping it over so right sides are together. You start by clipping the ends first. Here I put a clip to keep it straight. There are marks on the piece that you can transfer, and you try and line those up best you can. Again, I don't always find that they line up correctly. Baste at 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to add the right side. It is the right side. Right sides together. Again, you want to match both the ends first and clip those. Clip your zippers and then clip everything else in between. Sew it at 3/8 of an inch. Again, you really want to finger press the edge down as best you can. All right, now we're going to do the other side. Same procedure, you want to put them right sides together, clip your zippers, and then do everything else in between. It will be bending a little bit, which is normal. You are sewing curved edges together. Baste at 1/4 of an inch. If you have a little excess, it should work itself out as you go over the zippers. Here we're going to add the left side lining piece E. So again, you're just going to repeat. You're going to clip the top and the bottom, and then you'll clip to the zippers, and then everything in between. And sew at 3/8 of an inch. Again, finger pressing those edges before you top stitch. Next, we're going to add piece G, which is the back of the big pocket. Should match your exterior. Go ahead and clip around the edges and then baste. Here we're going to do handle prep. I recommend doing this beforehand, but I'm showing it here. Fold in half, find your center. Mark the center. You can use any pen. This pen I'm using is one from Lauren Mormino. Marks really good on the black. Next, we're going to use the grips. I'm going to mark up 3/8 of an inch and repeat on the other edge. Next, you're going to mark the center from the short ends at 2 3/4 inch. Repeat on the second piece. Use double-sided tape along the edge. I do leave the pieces together. Fold it up to the line. You're going to top stitch. I'm showing here that I'm not top stitching. I'm actually doing it on the wrong side, and that was because of the thread that I had in my bobbin. Put double-sided tape along the edges. Go ahead and separate them. And now you're going to add them to the handles. Add the grips to the handles. Match up those center lines. Grip should be sticking out by 7/8 of an inch on either side. Fold the grip into the center, getting as tight to the strap as you can. And then we're going to fold that in half again. Please keep in mind this is very, very thick. I don't recommend it unless you have an industrial machine. Unless you're using a very thin vinyl. Here I'm actually using leather, which is very, very thick. Clip in place. Then you're going to sew it at 1/4 of an inch. Repeat it on the second handle. Here I like to melt my thread ends. Next we're going to prep the top piece, so you're going to use piece I. Mark the center at 7 inches. Repeat it on the other edge. And you're going to center your ruler at 3 1/4 inch on that center mark, and then mark it at 6 1/2 inches, and then at the 0 mark. And then repeat on the other edge. Now you're going to place your handle with the seam side down, and place your handle to the exterior of your marks, hanging over 1/2 inch. Clip in place. Repeat on the other side. Make sure it's over by 1/2 inch. Here you really want to check to make sure that it's centered, so it should be hanging over by 2 1/4 inches on each side. Repeat on your second piece I. Now we're going to mark down 1 inch from the top edge. I use tailor's chalk. Next you want to start stitching around, and you're going to start at the bottom, go across, and then down. I do not show the second piece because the video came out horribly on the other one. Sew an X in the middle of your boxes if you do not intend to use rivets. Here I'm showing rivet installation. This is a super handy rivet template that I got, and I will link it in the description. Install rivets as you normally would. Now let's add the handles to the front piece. You want to put it right sides together. Match your ends. The ends of your handles should be sticking out. Sew at 3/8 of an inch. Here you want to make sure that you press the seam allowance towards the bottom. It's going to make it very, very bulky by doing this, but it is going to secure the handles down. Even with my industrial machine, I need to use a hump jumper to get over these seams. Again, make sure your needle is down. Now we're going to use piece H. Place it right side down, clip in place, sew at 3/8 of an inch. Again, make sure that you finger press waterproof canvas. Top stitch. For the back construction, we're going to start with piece L with the 14-inch edge closest to you, and then you want to go ahead and put your second handle assembly on the top right sides together and then sew at 3/8 of an inch. Again, we want to make sure that the seam allowance is pushed towards the bottom, and you really want to finger press the seam open. Top stitch across the bottom panel. This will secure the handles down as well. You want to find the center at 7 inches and mark down 3/4 of an inch. And now we're going to install the female end of the magnetic snap. Again, I use a small piece of Decaville Heavy on the back side of my hardware to keep the prongs from rubbing against the bag. The thing I'm using to make the holes is actually a scalpel, which you can buy on Amazon. I will link in the description. For the trolley sleeve, we're going to start with piece M, and we're going to add the interior piece M. So at 3/8 of an inch. Now we're going to again finger press the seam open. Go ahead and clip, add a few clips along the other edge, and then go ahead and top stitch it at 1/8 of an inch. Next, we're going to be adding the second piece of the magnetic snap, the male end. First, you want to find the center along your stitched edge, and then you want to mark down 1 1/8 inch and repeat the process of installing. you're only going to install it through the interior piece. Next, baste the edges. Now we're going to add our 15-inch zipper. Again, we're going to have it so that the pull is closed into the left. And we're going to sew on at 3/8 of an inch. You want to press the seam allowance up here and then top stitch at 1/8. Now we're adding our second piece H right side down, matching it to the bottom of the zipper. Sew at 3/8. Now here you're going to finger press this with the seam allowance towards the bottom. Do not top stitch, however. We're going to add it to our back that we created. You're going to pull it over, making sure that seam allowance is still pointing down. Clip together, and now you're going to top stitch across that piece H, with making sure the seam allowance is still pointing down. All right, we're going to baste around the sides and the bottom. Make sure your zipper is inside before you cut. For the gusset, we're going to start with piece K, and we're going to have it right side down with the longest edge closest to us. I'm going to mark a line at 3/4 of an inch. Add double-sided tape right along the edge. And then we're going to fold this edge over to the line. And then you want to finger press this as best you can to get all the ripples out. Turn it over and top stitch. And then you're going to repeat for the second piece. Okay. Now we're going to take piece J and we're going to add piece K to it, matching the bottoms. They should be the same width. Sorry, this is off camera just a bit. Now we're going to scoot in the edge of K to match it up with J. And you are looking for a little buckle in it, and that's so that when we construct the bag, it doesn't pinch the edges. Okay, we're going to go ahead and baste the sides and bottoms on. All right, and we're going to repeat for your second piece J and your second piece K. Scooting those edges in. And basting on. Next, we're going to add piece O. Right sides together, matching up the short edge. I'm going to sew the bottom only at 3/8 of an inch. Yes, and you want to make sure that the seam allowance is pointing down towards O, and then we're going to top stitch across O. Next, we're going to take the second side assembly and match it up to the other side of piece O, right sides together. Sewing at 3/8 of an inch. Opening, pressing the seam allowance towards piece O, and then top stitching across piece O. taking our front panel, we're going to add the gusset to it. We're going to match up the seams on the sides. And we're just going to clip together the sides only at this point. Next, we're going to mark 3/8 of an inch from the bottom of the front panel, as indicated here. And this is our mark to where we're going to stop sewing. So at 3/8 of an inch, stopping at your mark. Here I'm turning it over and redoing the mark so that I can have the body of the bag to the exterior of my machine. I'm adding a second row of stitching, starting 2 inches down and stopping right before my mark. Now we're going to add the bottom. Here you want to snip into the gusset, and you want to start where the corner of the exterior front matches up into the gusset without going too far. You don't want to go to the stitch line, just in close to it. So first you're going to match your corners up. And then you want to clip the remainder. Here you're going to sew between the marks that you made, adding a second row of stitching. Now we have our trolley sleeve / back panel. We're going to have that right side up. We're going to add our front assembly to it. Again, we're going to be matching up our side seams first. And then the top. And then split it, and then split it with clips. Get the other side clipped here. Again, matching up our side seams. Clipping the top. Again, don't forget to mark your 3/8 inch mark where to stop. And we're going to sew that on at 3/8 of an inch. Stopping at your mark. Repeat on the other side. In this case, I'm starting at the 3/8 inch mark to have the bulk of my bag to the exterior of my machine. I'm going to go ahead and add a second row of stitching right next to the first, starting before and stopping 2 inches before the top. And that's so that when we go to assemble the bag, we can open those seams up. Now to sew the bottom on, we do want to clip the gusset once again from the corner edge. Match the corners, find the center, and then divide it with clips. And we're going to sew again at 3/8 of an inch from one mark to the next. Adding a second row of stitching. Now we're going to trim all of our seam allowances to 1/4 of an inch, but we're going to leave 2 inches at the top of the bag so that we can open those seams up when we go for the final assembly. Just past here, I cut it off. Make sure to trim those corners down so that the bag turns well. Next, we're going to use piece N, and we're going to have it right side up, and we're going to put our 20-inch zipper right side down on the center of one long edge. Baste it on at 1/4 inch. Next, we're going to use the lining piece in and sandwich the zipper. I'm going to sew it on at 3/8 inch. Do not baste around the other edges. Again, finger pressing. Always clip my pieces together before I top stitch to make sure that there's no shifting. Top stitch. And then we're going to repeat this on the other side. So right sides together. Go ahead and baste the zipper on at 1/4 inch. If you notice, I'm using a zipper that's longer than the 20 inches of my piece N. That's because I use zipper tape, and I do like to have them a little bit extra long because of that. If you're using pre-cut zippers, the 20 inch is going to work just fine. Sew this on at 3/8 inch. Finger pressing again. Cannot overstress how important that is with waterproof canvas. Top stitch. Next, we're going to be pulling the exterior pieces together and clipping them at the ends. You want to sew this at 3/8 inch, not going over the zipper. Right, we're going to repeat on the other side. Again, not going over the zipper. And then we're going to do the same with the interior pieces. But we're going to sew at 1/4 inch this time, and that's because we're going to be putting these pieces together, and we need that exterior a little bit larger than the interior. Again, do not go over the zippers. And make sure your zipper pull is inside. Now we're going to flatten the ends into triangles. And for the filming of this video, I had a really difficult time. There's times it goes very easily. Of course, while I was filming, it went very hard. I actually cut quite a bit of footage out here of me fussing with this. Take your time. You do want to make sure that your zipper ends on the open end aren't crossed over each other. As you can see right here, they are crossed over each other, and I went through a lot of trouble to try and get them to not be crossed over. Again, I cut out a lot of footage of me trying to make that right. So you're lining up the seam with the zipper to make sure that it's straight. Again, lots of fussing. So using a large ruler here is helpful because you can line up the center of the zipper with a line on the ruler to make sure that the edge is straight. And you're going to measure down and draw a line. Repeat on the other side. Now we're going to sew on that line. I go all the way across and all the way back. And now we're going to trim this to 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to take our exterior and flip it over, and we're going to match the center seams together, as well as on the other end. Opening those seams up and laying them together. And then clip the remaining edges. And then we're going to baste it all together at 1/4 of an inch. For the lining, we're going to start with 1 piece P with the shorter side to you. You're going to measure down 3 inches from the top and mark the center. And then you're going to add your 1 piece T right side down, matching the centers to the mark that you just made. Next, you want to secure it in place. Here I'm using seam clips. You're going to measure 1 inch down from the top of piece T, find the center, and then you're going to go out 5 inches on either side, so a total of 10 inches. Then you're going to scoot down 1/2 inch, and from the top of your piece down it's going to be 1.5 inches. Make another 10-inch line, connect them, and then you're going to mark the center with V's at the end. Then you're going to go ahead and stitch around. Using a shorter stitch length will help with puckering in the corners. Here I have my machine set to the shortest length. Then you're going to go ahead and cut down the center and then the V's, getting as close to the stitches without cutting them. Next, pull the lining through the hole. Here I've pressed it flat so that it looks good. Next, you're going to use your 12-inch zipper. Make sure that it's zipped closed and add double-sided tape to each of the edges. With the zipper pulled to the left and closed, you want to remove the bottom piece and then center your opening over the zipper. Remove the backing from the top double-sided tape. Make sure it's nice and centered. The zipper pulls out of the way. Now we're going to top stitch, and I do like to start in the upper corner with the zipper closed, and that allows me to get the zipper almost entirely sewn on before I have to move the pull out of the way. Next, we're going to add the second piece T right sides together. Measure 1/2 inch up from the bottom edge of the pocket. We're going to be leaving this pocket bottom open to turn later, so you want to fold on the line, not to the line, on the line, and clip it down. Next we're going to sew the pocket closed at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and you just want to do the sides and the top of the pocket. Make sure to capture those ends that you turned up at the bottom. Now we're going to work on the lining slip pocket. So we're going to start with both pieces S, right sides together. And we're going to sew it 3/8 of an inch along one long edge. We're going to open it, we're going to finger press it open. You can iron this if you'd like. I like to add a few clips around the other sides, even if I'm not sewing them, to keep it from shifting while I'm sewing. And then top stitch along the sewn edge. Now we're going to be adding our Velcro, so you want to mark the top center. Then you're going to measure down a 1/2 inch. Separate your Velcro. If you're not using adhesive Velcro, go ahead and pin it on. And then we're going to sew only through one side with the top stitch. Now we're going to add our foam to a piece P. See the markings to know where to place it. I used a 1/4 inch fusible foam, which I adhered. Now you're going to add your second piece of Velcro to your first, and you're going to line up the bottoms and the sides. Before I add my second piece of Velcro, I just want to make sure that I have it on straight. Remove the backing, adhere it down, clip if you need to, and then top stitch. Now you're going to add your pocket piece back, lining up the Velcros. Clip it on, making sure that you have it on straight. And then you're just going to baste the pocket on. Now that we've finished our pockets, it's time to assemble the lining together. So you're going to start with one piece Q, add it to the slip pocket side. You're going to measure down 2 inches at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you're going to skip 2 inches and mark at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Connect the two, and then continue measuring at a 1/2 inch until a 1/2 inch from the bottom. Then you want to mark that. Stitch from your mark up to the top along the line. And then you're going to repeat that on the second piece Q. Again, you're going to stitch on the line starting at the top and stopping at the bottom on your mark. Now you're going to add the zip pocket assembly. And repeating our measurements. Once again, sewing on your line. Here, to make sure that it's square, you're going to open it up and lay it flat, even if the edges don't meet perfectly. And for the last side, you're going to go ahead and repeat your measurements again and then sew on the line again. Next, we're going to add the bottom to our lining, which is piece R. And you're going to start by lining the corners up first on one long piece. Do your other corner, then split it down the middle and continue. Next, you're going to mark 1/4 of an inch from each corner. And then we're going to sew it 1/2 inch from one mark to the next. Now repeat on the other long edge, matching up the corners, the middle, and then splitting them. Mark your corners at 1/2 inch and sew between the marks at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Finally, let's match up our short ends, again starting at the corners. Repeat on the other edge. Sew between the marks at 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to add a second row of stitching starting 2 inches down, and repeat for all of your seams. Here you want to trim your seam allowances down to 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to be leaving 2 inches at the top again. Now we're going to add our zipper panel to the exterior. You want to make sure that it is still wrong side out. And then we're going to turn our zipper panel so that the lining side is up and the exterior is facing out. Next, you want to mark the centers of your side panels by putting the seams together and cutting a small snip in each end. Add your zipper assembly, making sure that the zipper closes the same way as the front zippers. You're going to line up your side seams with the snips that you made on the exterior on both ends and clip. Then go ahead and continue to clip all the way around. based on your zipper panel at 1/4 of an inch. Next, we're going to add the lining to the interior of the bag. You want to turn your lining right side out. Open the pocket. Handles inside. You want to insert your interior. And you want to have the padding towards the trolley side and the zip pocket towards the front. And you're just going to go and match up your corners, opening the seams. Go ahead and continue to match the rest of the seams and then clip the rest of the bag together. Now you're going to sew it all together at 3/8 of an inch. Now you want to go ahead and trim down your seam allowances to 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to go ahead and turn the bag right side out through the lining zip pocket bottom. Apologies for the unfocused camera. This is the only footage I have, so it has to make do. Once you get everything out, you want to go ahead and push your lining down back into the bag and get it nice and straight. You want to see if there's any adjustments you need to make. You can reach down through the zip pocket hole if you need to push out the corners of the exterior. Here you're going to get ready to top stitch. So you're going to push your zipper panel down and you're going to roll that edge out. Here you want to try not to pull up on your lining to get it folded into the seam. When you're done clipping, you can go back underneath and just double check that you haven't folded it up into the seam. Finally, my favorite part, we get to do the top stitching on the final end. You want to start on the back side behind one of the handles and then work your way around. I have switched out my foot here to my 1/8 seam guide so I can make sure that my top stitch is as straight as I can make it. And finally, we're going to open the zip pocket on the interior and close it up. Your final stitch is a top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Congratulations, you're done.